Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
We're going to be talking about something that's, pretty crucial, especially if you're running a hotel or a restaurant these days.
Absolutely.
And that's how much the food industry is changing. We're not just talking about the latest fad diets or anything like that.
Right.
This is about, the whole way that people are buying food, what they want from it, and even how the whole system is being regulated.
For sure. It's a whole new world out there.
So to really dig into this, we're going to be looking closely at some insights from Maurice.
Yeah, Maurice is a hospitality pro. He specializes in food and beverage management and sales. So he really knows this stuff inside and out.
Exactly, and he shared some really insightful points in something he calls his text calais.
Yeah, love that name.
I know, right? So our mission today is to kind of pull out the most important nuggets from what Maurice has to say and hopefully give you some practical ideas that you can use in your own business.
I think that's something that a lot of people are looking for these days is, how to apply this knowledge.
Yeah, you can read all the articles and you can listen to all the podcasts, but then how do you actually take that and do something with it?
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
All right, so according to Maurice, one of the biggest things that's going on is how online platforms are totally changing how people buy and consume food.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame than even just a few years ago.
So what are we seeing here?
Well, Maurice points out that people are still buying food in traditional ways,
Yeah.
going to the supermarket, all that.
Yeah.
But there's this huge move towards online purchasing. And I think we've all seen that.
Yeah.
Like services like Amazon Fresh or Uber Eats, they've just exploded. And Maurice points out that recent global events, have really sped this up.
Yeah, I think the pandemic really pushed people in that direction.
For sure. Convenience is king.
Absolutely. And so what Maurice is saying is that for hotel and restaurant owners having a really strong online ordering system, it's not just a nice thing to have anymore. It's absolutely essential.
I think it's become the bare minimum for competing in this space.
Yeah. If you're not easy to find online, you're basically invisible to a whole chunk of your potential customers.
It's true. And Reese takes it a step further. He suggests that restaurants should think about partnering with these big delivery platforms like Deliveroo and Uber Eats.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because it puts you right in front of people who are already looking for food online.
They're already on those apps.
Exactly. So you're meeting them where they are. And Maurice also had a smart tip for getting more direct orders.
Okay, I like this.
He says offer special deals or exclusive items only for customers who order directly through your website or your app.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because it gives people an incentive to skip the third-party platforms.
And that means more money in your pocket.
Exactly. You save on those commissions. And Maurice is implying here that it also gives you a lot more control over the whole customer experience.
Right. You're not relying on someone else to deliver your food and represent your brand.
Exactly. You're in the driver's seat.
So let's move on to another big point that Maurice makes, and it's this interesting sort of tension that he sees between what he calls industrialized food products
Right.
and the rising demand for local, organic, artisanal, all that stuff.
It's like there are these two forces pulling in opposite directions.
Yeah, it's a real push and pull.
Absolutely. And Maurice is right on the money with this one.
So on one hand, you've got the mass-produced food that's still everywhere in supermarkets.
Right. It's cheap. It's convenient.
But then on the other hand, you've got this growing number of people who are really looking for food that feels more authentic, more connected to where it came from.
Totally. And Maurice points to the success of farmers markets and things like AMA as evidence of this.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Can you explain what an AMA is for people who might not be familiar with it?
Sure. So an AMAP, it stands for Association pour le maintien d'une agriculture paysanne. And basically, it's a system where people buy directly from local farmers.
It's like a subscription for fresh produce, right?
Exactly. You sign up and then you get a weekly or monthly delivery of whatever's in season. And Maurice uses this as an example because it really shows how much people are starting to value knowing where their food comes from.
They want that connection.
They want to support local farms. They want to eat what's fresh and in season. And Maurice says this is all part of a bigger trend towards what he calls what's real, what's good, and what's sustainable.
I love that. And so what advice does Maurice have for restaurant and hotel owners who are trying to tap into this trend?
Well, he specifically recommends making sure that you're offering homemade dishes
Okay.
or that you're really highlighting the local ingredients that you're using.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's about giving people that sense of something genuine, something special.
So it's not just about slapping some local tomatoes on a burger and calling it a day.
Right. It's about being intentional about it.
And Maurice also stresses the importance of being transparent with your customers.
Transparency is key.
Yeah, you need to tell the story of your food.
Exactly, like, where did those amazing vegetables come from?
Who bakes that sourdough bread that everyone's raving about?
These are the things that people want to know.
Because it builds trust.
Absolutely. And Maurice gives a great example. He says, imagine if you proudly put the name of the local farm that supplied your tomatoes right on the menu.
Oh, I like that.
Or if you highlight the fact that your bread comes from a small artisanal bakery down the street.
It makes the meal more than just food.
Exactly. It becomes an experience and it connects people to the community.
It's like you're sharing a story with every dish.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that Maurice points out that even big food companies are starting to catch on to this.
Yeah, they can't ignore it anymore.
You're having to adapt because people are demanding it.
Yeah.
So you're seeing things like clean label products where they're using simpler ingredients and avoiding artificial additives.
Right, they're trying to appeal to that desire for something that feels more natural.
Exactly. And we're also seeing a lot more vegetarian options popping up, even from companies that you wouldn't traditionally associate with that.
Because they're realizing that people want choices.
Exactly. And so Maurice's point is that innovation doesn't have to mean abandoning traditional values.
It's about finding ways to make those values relevant in a modern context.
Right. And for restaurant owners, this could mean adding more vegetarian, vegan, or allergen-free dishes to your menu.
It's about being inclusive and catering to a wider range of dietary needs.
Exactly. You want to make sure that everyone feels welcome and that they have delicious options to choose from.
And going back to what Maurice said about local sourcing, that's not just a feel-good story.
Right.
It's a tangible way to ensure quality and authenticity in your food.
It makes a difference. And Maurice even throws out this cool idea of a 100% local pizza.
I love that.
Like, can you imagine that your whole pizza from the crust to the toppings is sourced from local farms and producers?
That would be amazing.
Like, it would be a huge selling point, and it would really showcase your commitment to the community and to quality ingredients.
Okay, so we've talked about how people are buying food, what they're looking for in it. But now Maurice shifts gears a bit, and he starts talking about how the food market itself is being transformed by the rise of what he calls the digital
A
customer.
digital customer, yeah, it's a whole new breed.
And Maurice makes a really interesting observation. He says that online platforms aren't just changing how people buy food, they're changing the whole marketplace.
It's like the whole game is different now.
So what does he mean by that?
Well, think about it. Customers are now used to comparing different options online.
Great.
They can place orders with a few clicks,
Yeah, it's so easy.
and they can share their feedback through reviews and social media.
So that whole experience is now happening online.
And Maurice is saying that this has really raised customer expectations.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They expect speed, they expect flexibility, and they expect a high level of quality.
It's like the bar has been raised.
Totally. So if your online presence isn't up to par, you're going to struggle.
Your website needs to be easy to use. Your photos need to look delicious.
Absolutely. And Maurice gives some good tips for adapting to this new reality.
Okay, let's hear them.
So first, he says you need to really optimize your online presence, and that means making sure your website is user-friendly.
Especially on mobile phones, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. People are ordering on their phones all the time now.
So it needs to be seamless on a small screen.
Exactly. And then Maurice also talks about the importance of personalizing the customer experience.
Yeah, that's key.
And he suggests using the data that you collect from your online platforms to really understand what your customers prefer.
Like what they order the most, any dietary restrictions, they have things like that.
And then you can use that information to create targeted offers or loyalty programs.
So it's about making people feel like you know them and that you're paying attention to what they want.
Exactly. And Maurice even throws out this idea of creating special loyalty programs just for your regular online ordering customers.
Oh, that's clever.
It's like a VIP club for your most loyal online fans.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more crucial area that Maurice addresses, and that's the whole issue of sustainability and regulation.
This is huge.
It's becoming unavoidable.
Yeah, and Maurice really hits the nail on the head when he says that environmental concerns and all these changing regulations, they're having a huge impact on the food industry.
So what are we talking about specifically?
Well, for one thing, consumers are much more aware of sustainability issues than they used to be.
Yeah, they're not just hoping for sustainable practices, they're expecting them.
Exactly. It's becoming a major factor in their purchasing decisions. And then on top of that, you've got the legal landscape, which is constantly evolving.
Like around things like traceability and environmental impact.
Exactly. And Maurice is saying that these regulations are only going to get stricter.
So what does this mean for someone who's running a hotel or a restaurant?
Well, Maurice recommends taking a proactive approach.
Like,
He says things like reducing food waste and switching to biodegradable packaging. They're becoming essential.
yeah, it's not just about doing the right thing anymore. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
And Maurice stresses the importance of keeping up with all the latest regulations.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, but it's crucial because you need to make sure that your business is compliant.
And Maurice even has this inspiring example. He talks about implementing a zero waste program. Now that's ambitious.
It is, but think about the positive impact it could have.
Not just for the environment, but for your image.
Exactly. It shows that you're serious about sustainability, and it can attract customers who share those values.
So it's a win-win.
And what I find really fascinating is that Maurice is showing us how these operational changes can actually become part of your brand identity.
Yeah, they're not just something you have to do. They can actually be a selling point.
And that can really set you apart from the competition.
Okay, so last but not least, Maurice looks ahead to the future, and he talks about some of the big trends that he sees shaping the food industry.
Like, what are we talking about here?
Hell, he mentions things like the rise of dark kitchens.
Dark kitchens. Yeah, those are interesting.
Basically, kitchens that are just for delivery, no dine-in customers.
Exactly. And he also talks about the growing interest in functional foods.
Foods that are specifically designed to have certain health benefits.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's all the advancements in food technology.
Mm.
You know, things like 3D printed food and personalized nutrition.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. And Marie says that everyone in the hospitality industry needs to be paying attention to these trends.
We can't afford to get left behind.
You have to be forward-thinking and adaptable.
So Maurice's advice is to really focus on what's happening in the industry
Stay informed.
and be willing to try new things.
Even if they seem a little out there at first.
Sometimes you have to take risks.
And he gives this really intriguing example of launching a dark kitchen that specializes in a particular type of cuisine or signature dish.
Okay, that's a cool idea.
It's a way to reach new customers without having to invest in a whole brick-and-mortar restaurant.
So you're reducing your overhead and testing the waters.
It's a smart strategy.
So to sum it all up, Maurice is really painting a picture of an industry that's undergoing a massive transformation.
And he's saying that this transformation is being driven by a few key factors.
Technology sustainability, and that fundamental desire for real, authentic food experiences.
Those are the big three.
And Maurice encourages everyone listening, especially those of you who are running hotels or restaurants, to embrace this change.
To see it as an opportunity.
And to find that sweet spot where tradition and innovation come together.
It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding that balance.
So don't be afraid to experiment.
Don't be afraid to take risks.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to listen to what your customers are telling you.
They're the ones who are driving this change, after all.
And that brings us to a final question for everyone listening.
Yeah, what's that?
What will your next big idea be?
How are you going to capture the attention and the loyalty of your customers in this ever-changing food world?
Take some time to think about the insights that we've discussed today.
Which ones resonated with you the most?
And how can you apply them to your own business?
It's time to turn those ideas into action.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.